Good evening. I'm William Baxter, and this is Web Speech Platform. Tonight's interpretive reading is of a short story I wrote, which is published in my book, WaldoVille Tales. Now, the other tale in this book is the classroom reading of Monty Mantis. And both of those stories published in this book are published separately as ebooks. So you have one for Monty Mantis and the other for the story I'm going to read tonight, which is The Bully at WaldoVille Elementary School by William Edwin Baxter. That's me. Setting, Brooklyn, New York, March 13th, 1964. It was a dark early morning on March 13th, 1964. Kitty Genovese, a late-night bartender, was driving home from work, and she parked her car in a parking lot near her home in Queens, New York, and got out of the car. As Kitty Genovese was walking towards her apartment building, a man named Winston Mosley stalked her and murdered her at her apartment. This crime was witnessed by 38 people, but not one of them called the police or came to her, that is, Kitty's aid. From that time on, incidents where a group of people witnessed a crime but refused to help the victim or call the authorities, hoping that someone would do that, has been known as Genovese syndrome. Fortunately, Winston Mosley was arrested a short time later for stealing a TV set. It was there that he confessed to killing Kitty Genovese. Otherwise, because witnesses refused to get involved, Mosley might have never been caught. This started a lot of studies into why people often experience Genovese syndrome when they witness a crime or wrongdoing. We move forward to WaldoVille Elementary School, WaldoVille, Oregon, 3 months later. In early June of 1964, about 3 weeks before school let out for summer vacation, Harry Bowman Jr., Sammy Schumann, and Gail Gudenson, 3 good friends, were walking home from WaldoVille Elementary School one afternoon. Out of nowhere appeared a bigger kid who was in the 7th grade at Waldo Bartholomew Middle School. His name was Bart Heffington. Now, Bart Heffington was nicknamed Bruiser Bart by other kids from WaldoVille Elementary School and Waldo Bartholomew Middle School because he liked to bully 4th and 5th graders after school let up. He would show up at the Waldoville Elementary School playground and find a kid to pick on. Other kids at the elementary school witnessed Bart bullying someone, but they were afraid to tell anyone in authority for fear they would be beaten up by Bruiser Bart. Sound familiar? As Henry, Sammy, and Gail made their way across the school playground, Bruiser Bart came out of nowhere and grabbed Sammy Schumann by his shirt. "Say, Uncle," yelled the bully. Sammy refused to say anything. Gale told the bully. "You leave Sammy alone, you big bully." Bart replied, "You be quiet or you'll be getting the same thing." Then Bart turned to Henry and said, "That goes for you too. Now both of you get lost while I teach your friend here a lesson." Bruiser Bart, still holding on to Sammy's shirt, punched Sammy in the stomach twice, knocking the wind out of him. Then he removed Sammy's glasses and punched Sammy in his right eye. Then Bart said, "Listen, small fry, the next time I tell you to do something like say uncle, I expect you to do it. Now get lost, and if you tell anyone, I'll be back to give you more." Then the bully gave Sammy back his glasses, and Sammy ran home. Now, Bruiser Bart did not know that Sammy's father was Deputy Sheriff Walter Samuel Schumann. Deputy Schumann liked to be called by his middle name, Samuel. Adults called the deputy sheriff Sammy, and so his son was Sammy Jr. The sheriff's office was already on full alert as to what Bruiser Bart was doing to small children from WaldoVille Elementary School after school. Now, besides Sammy's two friends, Henry and Gale, there were at least 16 other kids who were walking through the playground at the time Bruiser Bart was beating up on Sammy Jr., but none of them came to Sammy's aid or ran back to the school to get help. This was the case for all the times Bruiser Bart was bullying a smaller kid, because kids were scared of Bart and what he might do to them if they squealed or tried to stop him from bullying. But all this was about to change. When Sammy Jr. got home and walked through the door, his father saw that his son had a black eye, and he asked him, "Who did this to you, son? Don't lie to me now." Sammy Jr. replied, "It was a bully from Waldo Bartholomew Middle School. Gale said that big kid's name was Bart." Then Sammy's father asked his son, "That wouldn't be Bart Heffington, would it? We have been getting a lot of complaints about that kid at the sheriff's office." Soon, Deputy Schumann contacted Sammy Jr.'s teacher, Miss Regans, to let her know about the things that had been happening on the school playground after school. That very next day in Miss Regan's class, the teacher addressed the children in her class. "Good morning, class. I have asked someone from the sheriff's office to come and speak to you this morning about something important. Please pay attention." Then Sammy's father entered the classroom, saw his son sitting in the second row. "Son, I think it would be a good idea if you waited out in the hall or in the office while I talk to the rest of the class," said the deputy sheriff. "Do as your father asked, Sammy. You will understand why later on," said Miss Regans. Sammy Jr. left the classroom and went and sat in the office. Then Deputy Sheriff Regans addressed the class. "Good morning, boys and girls. Has anyone here heard of a woman from the New York City named Kitty Genovese? She has been in the news a lot recently." Henry Bowman Jr., Sammy Jr.'s best friend, raised his hand. "Yes, Henry?" asked the deputy sheriff. Henry said, "She was killed by a very bad man near her home in New York. There were 38 witnesses, but none of them tried to help her or call the police." "That is correct, Henry," said said Deputy. And then Deputy Schumann continued. If the killer hadn't confessed his killing that woman when he was arrested for stealing a TV, he might be still running around loose because those witnesses didn't get involved. Now, I understand that a lot of you saw Bart Heffington beat up on Sammy yesterday, but you chose not to help Sammy or go get help. It is very important to report these things right away when they happen. Mr. Schumann, said Gail Gundenson. Yes, Gail, replied Deputy Schumann. Bart Heffington is a big bully. We were afraid of him, said Gail. Yes, that is one of the reasons so many choose not to get involved. But if witnesses don't get involved, people like Bart usually will just keep on hurting others. Then Henry spoke up. Bart is a bully, but he is not like the man in New York who killed Miss Genovese. Bart has never killed anyone. That is true, said Deputy Schumann, but Bart Heffington has been going around doing bodily harm to kids a lot smaller than him, unprovoked, and for no reason whatsoever. That is a crime we call assault and battery, and it is against the law. My son has a black eye and a couple of bruises on his ribs. Now I have to take my son down to the sheriff's office to identify Bart Heffington. As Deputy Schumann made his way to the door, he made one more remark to the class. Whenever you witness someone beating someone else up for no reason, don't be afraid to report it to your teacher, your principal, or to the police. If you are afraid you will get hurt, chances are you won't, but you will prevent others from getting hurt later on. So Sammy Jr. went down to the sheriff's office in WaldoVille Town Square with his father, and he recognized Bart Heffington as the big kid who beat up on him. On the way home, Sammy asked his father, Dad, why do big kids like Bart like to beat up on smaller kids for no reason? Sammy Jr.'s father replied, Bullies beat up on smaller kids for a lot of reasons. Deputy Schumann continued, You, Henry, Gail, and a lot of children at your school live in very happy families. You have mothers and fathers who love you very much, and you often do things together, go places together, and celebrate Christmas and other holidays together. Bart's father has a drinking problem, and his mother left him and his father a few years ago. Do you mean Bart is jealous of the kids that he beats up? Sammy asked his father. His father replied, That's part of the reason, son. You see, because Bart doesn't have the good family life that you and your friends have, that makes him feel inferior to kids with happy families. He feels the only way he cannot feel inferior, but actually superior, is to bully. What is going to happen to Bart? Asked Sammy. Will he go to jail? Sammy's father replied. Normally, kids who break the law spend some time in juvenile hall. In this case, Bart is going to have counseling. The counselor is going to help Bart by helping him to deal with his inferiority complex in more positive ways instead of bullying. Bart's father is undergoing counseling for his drinking problem. Bart should come out of all this a different person. The epilogue. Winston Moseley, the man who killed Kitty Genovese, was found guilty and he spent the rest of his life behind bars. The Kitty Genovese killing made the American public more aware of the importance of coming forward and speaking up whenever they witness a crime and not waiting for someone else to do it. This includes reporting bullying at the public schools. This is a lesson that the kids at WaldoVille Elementary School learned well. At the schools in Waldoville pulled together and created a bullying awareness program. And the kids in school were educated on the importance of reporting bullying. And at each school bus stop, a bullying stops here sign was placed. After a while, bullying was no longer a major issue in the town of Waldoville, Oregon. As for Bart Heffington, he did come out of counseling a new person. Besides meeting with his counselor, he also met with Henry Bowman's father, who was a local Presbyterian minister. One day, Bart asked Jesus Christ to be his Lord and Savior. Bart Heffington's life was changed forever. His father also became a born-again Christian during an AA, Alcoholic Anonymous meeting, and his life was also changed. 1 year later, one Sunday after church in late summer of 1965, Bart Heffington saw Sammy Schumann, Henry Bowman Jr., and Gail Gudenson talking, and he went over to them and said, "Sammy, I apologize for what I did to you a year ago. A lot has happened to me since that time, and I hope you, Henry, and Gail can forgive me." "Bart, we have already forgiven you," replied Sammy. Just then, Deputy Schumann came over and said, "Bart, Henry, Gail, my son, and I are, are going over to Mr. Weagle's popsicle shop to get some popsicles. Would you like to come with us? It's on me." Bart smiled and said, "I would like that very much. Thank you, Mr. Schumann." Bart's father had conquered his drinking problem, and eventually he married a Christian woman at Waldoville Presbyterian Church. And so Bart finally had the happy family life he so longed for, plus a lot of new friends. He and his father enjoyed a happy life from that time on. The end. I hope you enjoyed tonight's story, and there's a lot to be learned from it, especially for children, and that's why I like to write these stories. Well, I'll be back later with more on web speech platform. My other podcast, Frontier Folk Singing with William Baxter, will be over at Facebook for the next 3 months. And eventually it will be back here on Frontier Web Singer. I will be back later with an interpretive reading on web speech platform. Until then, you all have a good night and a good weekend. Bye now.